All right, well, thanks for coming. And I'm going to do a little, try to keep it brief for you. I know people have places to go. Try to keep it to an hour if I can. And feel free to interrupt me at any time with questions. And if I say I'm about to get to that, that just means that I'm about to get to it. And I don't want to lose my train of thought, but I won't get to it. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Ann Marshall. I'm one of the CrossFit coaches here. I'm a massage therapist, an herbalist, and a nutritionist. And I also teach at a massage school in Florida, where I've taught for over 20 years. So lots of hats, which I like. And one of my passions for the past 35 years has been food, nutrition, planting it, growing it, eating it, learning about it, and that continues. So that's why I like to share things with people as I learn them. And so hopefully you'll find something interesting. If you go away with one little piece, that will be good enough for me. So tonight's topic is inflammatory foods. I guess I should ask you if you have any initial questions or things that you would like for me to address, if I can. Anybody? Or what you might be looking for, or why you came, or what your favorite color is. Anything, so I don't know the doc. No? All right, good. Okay, so we're going to talk about inflammatory foods, and if you know me at all, you know that I talk a lot about inflammatory foods. But I wanted to talk a little bit more about something other than gluten, which is my favorite inflammatory food, and of course I will talk about it because it's so important. But also, come on in. No, it's fine. Yeah, you're good. Grab anything if I want to sit on there. Yeah, sure. Go for the mat. So anyway, what we're seeing a lot in ourselves and our friends and our family is, seems to be more and more just kind of crazy diseases that are happening, little processes are happening in the body that are making us sick. And then sometimes symptomless things that happen and 20 years later we end up with some other kind of disease. And this seems to be kind of snowballing. So, and I think a lot of it has to do with nutrition. A lot of the material that I've read points in that direction too, and I think one place that we can really start is just eating clean, eating unprocessed foods, and paying attention to what foods do to us personally, because it's really different for each one of us. So paying attention to what happens, when you eat certain foods and how you feel, in 20 minutes, and then how you feel the next day, and mentally and physically, and just getting people to start to do that is a great place to start. But I do want to talk about inflammatory foods, so I just want to talk about what that means. So basically, foods that create a negative immune response, meaning that we're always having immune responses for one reason or another, but white blood cells come in, they get confused, and they start attacking other parts of our body. This happens a lot with inflammatory foods. Okay, they cause an irritation, the body says, oh no, something's going on, we better fix that, sends out the white blood cells, and it takes care of the wrong thing, basically. So the 5 things that we're going to address tonight are gluten, vegetable oils, sugar, legumes or beans, and nightshade plants, which are plants that are in the Solanaceae family. Same family as tobacco. So we'll start at the top and just go through them. Okay, first one being gluten. And just some things that's happened over the last 10 years with this whole gluten, wheat, and I'm going to use that word interchangeably. There are other things that gluten are in, and we'll talk about that, but for right now I may just use gluten and wheat interchangeably, so let me do that if you will. So there's a huge correlation in the autism community. Children, many more kids are being diagnosed with autism. And taking them off gluten, dairy in particular, makes a huge difference in both their behavior, their ability to focus, their ability to socialize and communicate. So it's having a huge impact, as well as people with attention deficit issues. Sorry, if I'm trying to make okay. Find one. I'm roll over. That's about all the stuff. You might want to come this way, so you're not going to be able to see. Thanks. I'll keep going like I'm standing in front of you. You guys all right? Okay. So people that have have a celiac disease or gluten intolerance, that's another word that I'm going to use interchangeably tonight. They really, oftentimes will find out because of other things that are going on for them. So they might find out because they have early onset osteoporosis, or they might have some other inflammatory condition, maybe arthritis. Or some unexplained, why are my bones aching so much? Why does my shoulder hurt so much? Why am I getting injured over and over again when I feel like I'm taking care of myself and doing the right thing? I get bloating after I eat. I have gas. I burp. I have constipation or diarrhea. It can be either one. GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease, basically indigestion. I mean, how many people do you know that are on something for indigestion? We shouldn't have to be on something for indigestion. We shouldn't have to do that. So there's a reason for that. Okay? Cardiovascular issues and high blood pressure, skin rashes, eczema, psoriasis, usually always a dietary issue going on there. And often a food allergy or food sensitivity, we'll call it. So there is a spectrum, okay? So we have here's our little line. This is our spectrum. We have gluten intolerance here, we have celiac disease over here. Celiac disease is really a severe reaction to wheat and gluten, oats, barley, and rye. And the people with celiac disease can get really sick if they are contaminated with any of those products. Gluten intolerance is basically on the same spectrum. It's just not as severe. But it doesn't mean that, oh good, well I'm here, so that means I get to eat bread. No, it doesn't mean that, because you're still going to have a reaction to it. So I want to just talk about it as a whole. I'm not going to talk about it, well, I'll have a little bit, I'll have a lot, So we're just going to talk about it as all one thing for tonight. It'll be easier. So if you don't make the change in the diet, if you don't remove the gluten from your diet, which really isn't as hard as it might seem, other issues can arise as you get older, and it does usually happen progressively. Kids, they're clean, they're new, they can usually deal with things, and then as you get older, it starts to cascade and catch up with you. So people in their 40s and 50s will start to get more issues like autoimmune diseases like lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, which is an autoimmune disease, cancer. Cancer is opportunistic, so when the immune system is depressed, it's going to say, hey, let's go, let's mutate and take over because we can. Multiple sclerosis, there's a huge, huge correlation with people with multiple sclerosis and gluten intolerance. Heart disease and type 1 diabetes, not just type 2 diabetes, which is also a lot of blood sugar issues with gluten because it's sugar. Okay? So let's take a little bit of a closer look at it so you can kind of figure out what's going on and what it is. So gluten, as we see, it's the common name of the complex of 2 types of protein found in wheat, rye, barley, and oats. Okay? So those are the things, and there's an acronym that's used around the community of gluten intolerance people. It's called BROW. So that helps you remember it. If you're grocery shopping, you can remember BROW. Okay, does this have any of those things in it? Okay. Barley, rye, oats, and wheat. Okay. Gliadin is one of the 2 proteins. Glutenin is the other. And gliadin is the protein that's reactive in the small intestine. So you eat it, and it causes this immune and inflammatory response in the intestinal tract. Okay? And it's really a genetic inability to digest this protein. So then you have this immune response, this inflammatory response. So it's not necessarily an allergy, okay, as people might call it, but for ease, if you're out at a restaurant, or just call it an allergy because people understand what that means. Okay, but it's really just an autoimmune process that's happening in your body. Okay, so we'll move on to what's actually happening. And so the gliadin of gluten, it reacts with the enzyme tissue transglutaminase. And so because of that reaction in the immune response, anti-transglutaminase antibodies are formed, okay? And it creates this, another immune response against itself, and that's sort of the autoimmune component of it, okay? So it's trying to figure out what the heck is going on, basically. So you're having this response, your body's trying to fix it by creating these anti-transglutaminase antibodies, which then creates another issue in the body. So it's this cascading effect that happens. It creates chronic inflammation in the GI tract or the gut. The microvilli that are responsible for absorption of nutrients of your food, usually are nice, high, reactive, lots of surface area, and they absorb the nutrients from your food. And they get blunted over time. They get sleepy, they lose their surface area, and I'll show you some pictures of that in a minute. And they almost get flattened out. So absorption is going to be compromised. And in this process, then, the intestinal wall begins to almost deteriorate. It gets porous, almost like a sponge, if that helps you make sense of it. And so food particles can actually leak out from the intestinal wall into the bloodstream and create another issue in itself. So lots of toxins then go into the bloodstream, and there can be another autoimmune issue, there can be an immune issue, there can be a disease process because of that. So, and further, the loss of enterocytes, which are the cells that are responsible for absorption in the gut, okay, they just sort of fade out. They really can't do their job anymore. They get compromised. So your whole immunity gets compromised. So you'll find that, I don't know if anybody in here is gluten intolerant, but if you know anybody who is, you'll find that they get sick a lot. They don't understand why they get sick a lot. They get a cold that goes around. They keep hurting their shoulder. They keep pulling something in their leg. So because their immune system is compromised and they can't really deal with what is coming in efficiently. Infections also get trapped in the pockets of the intestines, and it can become a chronic source of infection, which then can create a bacterial infection in the gut, parasites even. So there's a lot of secondary issues that can happen because of this. So any questions about any of this before I move on? Am I talking too fast? Is it making any sense? Is it okay? So here's some pictures for you, keep you entertained. So here's the little microvilli that I was talking about, all the way around. So they're responsible for, they kind of stick up and they absorb all the nutrients, okay? And if you blow that up, you'll get one of these, okay? And inside are these lumen, okay? So all of this is responsible for absorbing the nutrients from your food. And when there's chronic inflammation, what starts to happen is, so if we take this little piece of lumen into this square, you see all these little circles. Now they're starting to, see how it's sort of sponge-like? So you're starting to get holes almost. And they're very small, but you get holes in your intestine where, food particles leak out, acids leak out, the stuff in your gut that you don't want to leak out to the rest of your body is doing that. So can be a big problem. And this is called leaky gut. Have you ever heard of that before? And so people, sometimes they use the word, I don't really know what they're saying, but sometimes they do know what they're saying, and they do have leaky gut, and they have a lot of issues because of it. A lot of health issues. So you don't want to get that far, okay? So here's another little picture of the microvilli. Okay, here's the white blood cells that come in to try to figure out what the heck's going on, but ends up deteriorating it instead. See this inflammation, it's starting to get squishy. It's like a melting snowman. Okay, it's getting flatter, and pretty over here, you've lost a lot of surface area for absorption, and you're starting to get those little microscopic holes again. Okay. And yet another picture. So here's our intestinal, our healthy intestines. And then we have inflammation, and it goes, flattens right down, gets the holes. We have leaky gut. And food particles, this is where they can sneak out in here because of these little holes. So here are the holes, here are the holes. And then leaks out into the bloodstream. So we have, so we can get yeast and fungi. So Candida, which we all have in our bodies, but this is a great time for Candida to take over because it can, it loves to do that. It's very opportunistic. And it takes advantage of the situation. So a lot of times people will get over Candida thrush, it's called sometimes, and parasites and harmful bacteria. So it can get to be a big situation. what happens when the intestines get so compromised is that other food allergies develop. So you may find out, people find out that they end up being dairy intolerant. They end up being intolerant to some random food that they didn't know that they were. Like eggs is another big one. But the good thing is a lot of times if you take that 6 months or a year to heal the gut, really heal it, that means no cheating, you can start to reintroduce those other foods and be successful at it. You can eat them again. Not always, it depends on the person, but it's always worth a try if it's something that you really do want to have. So the one last thing that happens is called the peptide effect. And gluten is pretty much like a drug. And it has opioid substances in it. And one of them is called gliadorphin. Yes. And basically it has a pretty dulling effect on the brain, can blunt your attention, can affect eye contact. I call it gluten stupid. I've experienced it before, and I watch other people experience it that don't even know they're experiencing it. So go to dinner, go out to dinner sometime, and watch people eat the bread basket. And then sit there and watch their eyes glaze over. And it's not just the wine. That might be part of it. But, and if you have somebody close to you that this is happening for, help them out. Like, have them pay attention to what's going on so they can get better. It's really difficult for kids in school. Oftentimes it's just a diet issue for them. It's not that there's really anything wrong or that they have some attention problem. It's that they can't focus. They have a nice sandwich and whatever they have for lunch, and down it goes again. They're just, who feels tired after they eat sometimes? We shouldn't feel tired after we eat. So, things to pay attention to. Removal can be really irritating, just like any drug. You're not going to like it. It's just don't want to get rid of it. Because it has sugar, and sugar is addictive too. We'll talk about that in a minute. But some people will say to me, I just can't. I just can't imagine, I just can't do it. I can't give up my bread, I can't, I love my bread, I love my bread, I love my bread. And there are other choices too. You can have bread, you can have gluten-free bread. Not that it's a great choice, but it's a good interim choice. It's a good way to kind of transition over. So it's not really as bad as you think. Okay? There are tests. Some people say, well, I have to know. I just have to have a test. And the best test is just eliminate it for 3 weeks completely with no cheating, and then reintroduce it and see how you feel. That's really the best test. But if you have to have a test, if you want to have a test, I do have these tests. I have a food sensitivity test that tests about 100 different foods. Gluten and wheat is one of them. Unfortunately, they can be negative a lot, these tests. So they can also be positive. So you don't really know, but if that's something that you need to do or want to do, you can be tested for it. They test it for the antibodies. And they put the protein of the food with the protein of your blood, and they test the level of reaction. You can also get a small intestine biopsy, which I would not recommend. But that's what they do when somebody's really sick, and all these tests keep coming back negative. They keep trying to find out, well, what's really wrong, so they'll do a biopsy. And they may find out, if they get a piece of the intestine that's compromised, they may find out. If they don't get a piece of the intestine that's compromised, it'll still come out negative, and they'll still be sick. So, elimination test is really the best, and it's the easiest, and it's the cheapest. Okay. And this is probably what I hear most often, more than any other comment. But I don't really eat very much gluten. Or I don't really eat very much bread. I might just have one piece a day, or one piece every other day. But it doesn't matter. If you have one small bite, for those of you who are gluten intolerant, you know what one small bite of gluten will do to you. Like if you get contaminated in a restaurant or something, you'll get bloating, you'll start to feel bad, you'll get fuzzy-headed, you'll go to sleep, you'll throw up, you'll have diarrhea, whatever it is that will happen for you. It happens with one little piece. And it takes about 24 to 48 hours to recover from that. So if you do that every other day, there's really no point. You're going to just keep causing this inflammatory response all over again. So it doesn't matter if you don't eat very much. really can't eat it. Okay, and you can have lots of other good food. So these guys, I think they have a little more to worry about than whether or not they're ugly. I think they should go ahead and eat it. Okay. All right, so that's it on gluten. That's the longest one, so you know, yes.
Sorry, just on your brown reminder of what the foods are. I thought, are oats naturally gluten, or is it only from the basis of the processing?
Mostly it's the basis of the processing. So if you can get steel cut oats that haven't been processed, they won't have...
Oats themselves aren't gluten.
Right.
Okay.
But when they process them into rolled oats,
oh yeah.
then they become flour. Any others? You guys doing okay? Okay, fats. Dun, dun, dun. Good, the bad, and the ugly. So we're going to talk about all three, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So fats are great. Fats are probably the one food, I'll call it food group, not really food group, but over the last 50 years, sort of under this whole modernization, industrialization, that have gone through the most change and adulterated and have had the most profound negative effect on the world that any other food has, which is kind of, you think it might be hard to put corn syrup or it might be something else, but no, it's fats. So let's talk about good fats. So good fats are olive oil, butter. Yes, butter is not a bad thing. It got a bad rap. And in the late 50s, this guy, Dr. Fry, I think it was, he decided that he was going to put out this whole publication about how butter caused heart disease. And so margarine people who were just getting on the bandwagon were like, great, we're going to back this guy all the way, you know? And so there was a lot of bad press until his peers were finally like, hey, where's your scientific studies? And it took them about 10 years to finally come around and say, oh, well, those studies really, they were with, I was using margarine when I was showing what happened with people with heart disease. So butter is fine. Coconut oil is great. Animal fats, which sounds strange, sort of old-fashioned, like lard and tallow, but old animal fats are also fine. Palm oil and macadamia nut oil. And as you see, these are sort of the most oily ones, aren't they? They're the ones who don't really need heat to process to make them into oil either. Okay? They can handle the heat, but they don't need the heat to become oils. These are the ones that really, olive oil can probably handle the least amount of heat, and butter, but the rest of them can handle the heat in both processing and in heating. So processing meaning if they're being made into something else, and then heating if you're actually cooking or frying them or something. Okay?
And palm oil is okay?
Yeah.
I thought it was bad. I thought palm oil.
I know.
Isn't that what they put in like cookies and all that?
In
cookies
Yeah,
and they say it's very bad.
It depends on where, depending on if it's made into another process. You know, have they taken that and then hydrogenated it and made it into like a hard form or something? So check that out too. Okay, why are they good? Well, nature makes good fats and factories don't. That's the simplest thing. Okay, you have to have a factory to make the pretend fats. Okay. Traditional fats have been around for thousands of generations. And vegetables have been around for a little over 50 years. Okay. And during that time, that 50 years, just a few little comparisons for you for interest. Butter consumption's dropped from 18 pounds to 4 pounds a year per person. Vegetable oil has gone up from 11 pounds to 59. That's 59 pounds of vegetable oil a year. That's a lot of vegetable oil. And now we have heart disease is the #1 cause of death of men and women. Well, I doubt it's going to be. I mean, there's probably many other contributing factors. But this is just something for you to consider, something to look at on what's happened over the past 50 years to a lot of foods. Okay. Yes.
What kind of butter? So if you
Good butter. You know what's good butter? I looked it up. is that anchor, that New Zealand anchor butter. Yeah, it's from like free range wandering around cows in New Zealand. So it's like pretty close to organic, and it's pretty good price. Nice and yellow. I mean, you want a butter that's bright yellow, it really looks. Coconut oil, refined or unrefined. Unrefined, if you can. If you can't, fine. Something's better than nothing, sure.
And like, what's in the oil to use for cookies? Like,
For cookies?
yeah. Like,
Coconut oil.
and just melt it down.
You just melt it down. And butter.
Anchor oil.
Kerrygold butter too is also free range.
What's that?
Kerrygold?
Yes, nice. That's nice butter too. Yeah, New Zealand seems to have a thing on butter for sure. All right, here's the ones that we want to be careful of. Canola oil, which got this huge, like, everybody thinks canola oil is great, right? Not. One of the worst, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Soy oil, sunflower oil, cottonseed oil was one of the first pretend oils made because it was cheap from cottonseed. Corn oil, grapeseed oil, safflower oil, and then any of these nasty old butter spreads. You know, any of these like pretend this and that, some less fat, and anything they have to like whip up and throw hydrogen at to make it be solid, to turn into something that looks like butter is not going to be a good thing for you. Better just to go ahead and buy that anchor butter. All right. So the ugly. All right. So vegetable oils, the ones on the previous page, they contain heat-sensitive polyunsaturated fats. Okay. So what they really contain then, in order to make the oils, they have to go through a heating process to be pressed out, because the kernels or the seeds or whatever they're using, they're so hard. These oils contain mutated, oxidized, heat-damaged versions of a once healthy fat or seed. Okay, so it's not that you know, the sunflower's bad, or it's not that the corn's bad. It's that what happens to it in the process of making it into an oil changes it into a whole different thing. Okay? Polyunsaturated fats have room for more than one oxygen to squeeze through during the heating process. Okay? Monounsaturated fats, which are the butters and the olive oils, they only have one oxygen. So it's really hard for any reactions to happen. So when heating happens, they're not only twice as likely to make this sort of, it's almost like a bomb happen, okay, in the body. Okay, it sort of is logarithmic. It becomes more like 1 billion times more likely than monounsaturated fats for this reaction to happen. Canola oil has 3 places for oxygen to squeeze through. And just as a reference point, TNT has 6. So this is one of the worst oils you can use. Okay? Just so you know. Poof. Okay? All right, then there's free radicals. Good old free radicals. So trans fats react with oxygen generating one free radical after the other. So because these guys have places for oxygen to come in, okay, these fats react with the oxygen, and that reaction creates free radicals. Okay, make sense? So they behave, and what free radicals do is they behave like molecular radiation, burning everything they come into contact inside your body or out. Which is why free radicals are not good. Okay, it's why cancer loves free radicals. Okay, they're all about it. Mutation is the game. Free radicals are high energy electrons that are involved in every known disease that we know of. Okay? So we want to stay away from trying to make them in our bodies, or eat them, or cook with them. Okay, so think about it. Okay, I'm going to use this image so you can think of like a piece of chicken. Okay, you're going to make fried chicken. Okay, so you're going to coat it in flour, whatever you do with your fried chicken. I don't know. And you're going to get a vegetable oil because that makes the crispiest chicken, right? So you put it in, cook it up, and sure enough, it's nice and crispy. So what's happening is it doesn't really cook the food, it just blasts them with these free radicals, and it fuses the molecules together, which is why it becomes so crispy. Okay, it fuses all the molecules of the oil and the flour, makes it nice and hard, and you can bite down, it's pretty crispy. It's good try. Okay. And it says actually call it a free radical cascade. It's kind of like out of control, right? And what happens in your body is it also makes your arteries crispy. So taking in enough of these oils that have, you know, this whole free radical cascade going on, or depending on how they were processed, and then if you cook with them again, because they really can't tolerate the heat, the vegetable oils. They can't. They just turn into these monsters. Okay? And I'm not trying to be negative, because I'm not a negative person, but I just really want you to be aware of what you're putting in your body, and then you can make choices around that. Because butter's way better anyway. Like margarine's bread. So this whole process causes rampant inflammation and chemical chaos in the body, and no wonder we're having so many issues and diseases going on, you know, in the world and in ourselves. So any questions about that? About vegetable oils? No more vegetables. Any oil that you can put in the refrigerator and it stays liquid?
No.
So that's an easy way to like see it, like it's in your refrigerator. And they also go rancid very quickly. So just throw them away. Just
A quick question, grapeseed oil. Somebody told me to buy grapeseed oil. Where did I read that? But that's not a good.
it's better. Like there is, I could put those bad oils like in a list of like 1, 2, 3, 4. And canola would definitely be on my top, or margarine spread. I'm not sure which one. But like sunflower, grapeseed, you could eat those, but I wouldn't cook them.
What about sesame oil?
Same thing. It's another one of those pretty, you know, goes rancid pretty quickly. Tastes really good though. So yeah, it's hard to, you know, it's a little softer of a shell. So I'm not sure the process that it is used to get it out of, the seed. That would be worth looking into. Anything else before we move on to sugars? Doing okay? All right. All right, sugar. Well, nobody wants to hear this. It's only 2 slides. So yummy sticky sugar, I call that, because that's really what it does in our body, okay? In any form that you take it in. It seeps into your system, it coats the surface of cell membranes through a process called glycation, which interferes with hormone receptor function. So for children, sugar is really bad because they're developing so quickly. And so they are, you know, trying to go through all of these physiological changes, and it interrupts normal hormone function and development. So, and it doesn't mean, you know, don't ever have sugar in your entire life, but certainly the amount of sugar that we all consume, I don't know how much you consume, is really kind of over the top. Okay, and it really is in whatever form you take it in. That means starches and grains and maple syrup and honey, and certainly those would be better choices, you know, than refined sugar if you were going to have some. But just know that, you know, it's really all about balance here. It's not about, you can't ever have any of these things that I just put on the wall because it'll be hard to, you know, live your life and enjoy it. But it is about balance and moderation. So what else about sugar? So what else does it do for us? Not too much. It jams hormone signals. It clogs nutrient channels. It weakens bone and muscles. So people that are, especially people that are sensitive to it, they'll have sugar and they'll wake up and they'll be very achy. Or they'll have a chronic knee problem. Or they'll have a chronic hip problem. It stiffens the collagen in tendons, joints, and skin. And again, it causes an inflammatory response, leading to arthritis, premature wrinkling, and because it interferes with the production of new collagen, which is what makes our skin nice and smooth and young and fresh looking. It also has a really detrimental effect on blood sugar. Okay, and that's any sugar. So again, you know, grains, flours, all that stuff, plus the regular sugars. Over time, the pancreas can't deal with producing the insulin. You become insulin resistant. You end up with type 2 diabetes. You know, that whole cycle.
But this is like processed sugar, not like natural.
It's like any sugar. It's just so much. There's so much sugar going into our body through so many different means, including the processed sugar. But at least give up the processed sugar. You know, like start there. Like at least just use maple syrup or honey, and you know, try to have things that try to decrease your amount of sugar. Like, do you really have to have sugar in the tea? Do you really have to have it? Yes, I do. Well, it's because that's what we're used to, and our bodies are so addicted to it. You know, we are. And it's the same withdrawal process that happens. Like wheat is, we get grouchy when we don't get our sugar. We get tired when we don't have our sugar. We just want that little afternoon pickup, right? Not alone. Okay, thanks. Any questions on sugar? I told you to be quick.
So, what about like dried fruits or like regular fruits? Is that
They're sugar, yeah.
But it's better, right?
It's better.
But it's still bad.
Yeah. I have a hard time saying fruits are bad, but I can say juice is bad because it's really just sugar.
Right.
So if you're gonna, you want a juice, you want a fruit, eat the whole thing. Like get the fiber, get the skin, get the nutrients, as well as the sugar. So yeah. And the only thing I would say about that also is bananas are very high in sugar. They also make you very constipated if you eat them regularly. And a lot of people, because I'm doing a lot of these food sensitivities tests, there's a lot of people. I mean, hands down, that's probably the most common food sensitive thing that comes up for people is bananas. So next time you eat one, make sure you have an upset stomach, see if you get constipated, especially if you're eating bananas every day, I bet you are constipated.
Good question.
Yes?
High fructose corn syrup, what's the bad thing about that?
Because it's processed even more and it's been made into sort of this, think of it as like green slime. So it's like gotten into everything out there. It's cheap.
Yeah.
So instead of using sugar, they're using fructose corn syrup. To me, they're all going to go on the same page, basically. But especially if you're going to have sugar, don't have high fructose corn syrup. At least, step it down to the next level.
Do you want to just mention agave? Because I'm always surprised that that's still in the health.
I know. Agave was a great marketer. Whoever thought of agave was like a great marketer. Because really, it's high fructose corn syrup. And with a great marketing campaign. And if you look on the ingredients, it won't tell you what's in there. Okay? I think you can get a real agave. It will be wildly expensive in a small container, and it won't be any common brand that you've seen. So I think it's out there, but the common stuff that they've said is good for diabetics and it's fine because it's not sugar, it's not true. So be careful if you know someone that's using it. Anything with that kind of marketing, I'm always really careful about. Like
that coffee bean.
How did this all get so cool all of a sudden? What?
It's that coffee bean one, I forget what it's called. Like this, they sell those drinks.
You mean like a coffee drink?
No, it's like these drinks they sell everywhere.
Red Bull or something?
No, I'm gonna look it up. I forget.
You're gonna kill yourself drinking that stuff. Let's have massive amounts of caffeine and massive amounts of sugar all at once, and then put alcohol with it. Brown rice syrup. So same thing. It's still sugar, just like rice is. Rice is sugar too.
Yeah.
So even though I wouldn't say, well, don't eat any grains, but eat them in moderation. Eat them much, make them a very small portion of what your plate is, because of the sugar effect. So brown rice syrup, same thing. Still in the category, but again, if you were going to choose something for sugar, I would choose that over white sugar. I mean, think of anything white, like white rice, white bread, white sugar, white salt. Those are kind of the bad things. Try to do that first, and and then you can always make other steps later.
I've tried this, like this, there's the stevia, but it's like truvia and all
Yeah.
that, but I don't think they're exactly pure, but I tried the stevia that comes like from Peru or wherever, and
Uh-huh.
it's green, but it tastes pretty foul. So, would you suggest having maple syrup instead of stevia, or should we be looking for stevia? Numerpolis and stevia, but
No, it's funny, that whole thing about truvia, it's like, I feel like it's agave all over again. But you know, I've grown a stevia plant, it's really sweet. I mean, I've tasted the leaf, and it really is sweet. So I think it depends on, well, how they processed it. And I think that would be the first question, like how does it become this nice white powder when it was a green leaf?
yeah.
What did they do to it to get there? And did that change what it is? And I don't know the answers to that. So I think I go for this.
Yay.
I'm a maple syrup and honey person.
And all juices being honey, sugar, or whatever.
Yeah.
Say, like the ingredients on it, it's obviously, if you don't understand anything, it's on the ingredients, then obviously it's not something that you want to drink. But I remember seeing the other day Tropicana orange juice, and it said on the back when I was looking at it, it said 100% Florida orange juice.
Yeah.
That was the only ingredients that were on this thing.
Yep.
So that's good. That's
It would be, so the question is
how much-
about juices, and if it just says 100% juice on it, is it okay? Well, it's better than the stuff that says high fructose corn syrup, artificial flavor and color, blah, 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 blah. Better than that, but it's still all sugar. So it'd be better to eat the orange.
Yeah.
And then I would say, you know, I know for some people with their kids, they're trying to get them to like take something or take a vitamin or whatever, and they have to give them a little juice. But just give them a little bit and fill the rest up with water, so don't get used to that really heavy sweet. And get them used to drinking water. And even for your own self, you know, if you want something special in the evening, you're not going to have an alcoholic drink, have a spritzer with a little bit of fruit juice in it. I mean, that's a nice little drink, and it tastes like it's special. I wish I had one right now. Just don't mix it with Red Bull. All right. So those are great questions. Anything else on sugar? Okay. So the last thing, well, not the last thing, but almost, is legumes. Legumes, beans, I'm going to say. Here we have legumes. We have alfalfa, clover, peas, beans, lentils, lupins. Ooh, that's not spelled right. I took that out. I was supposed to take that out. I did take that out. I'm not a very good computer person. Probably didn't save it. Okay, anyway, soybeans and peanuts. Okay. All right, so let's talk about beans. What's the deal with beans? Phytic acid and enzyme inhibitors are in beans, and phytic acid binds with minerals, calcium, magnesium, making it hard or actually impossible to absorb. Okay, so there are ways to get rid of this, to neutralize the phytic acid and the enzyme inhibitors. But it's also, this whole process of trying to absorb is really irritating to the GI tract, which is why you feel, if you do, bloated, gassy, beans, not, you know, the little song, beans, no. Well, that's why. The enzyme inhibitors in the legumes can also inhibit your own natural enzymes that help you break down food. So that's double trouble. Okay, but luckily you can eat these if you do certain things to them. Okay, so we'll move on to that. So the other piece is that beans have lectins, which are a protein, and it's what is used to protect themselves, which kind of makes them hard, basically. Okay. And they break down the membranes of cancer cells, fungi, bacteria, and viruses, which sounds kind of good. Like, well, that could be good. But at the same time, they also break down the lining of our intestines. Not good. Okay? So, if you want to eat them, cool. It's all right. Happy little peanut over there. Or death peanut over there. You can sprout them. Okay? It neutralizes the phytic acid and denatures the lectins. Okay? You can soak them. which does the same thing. If you soak your beans, or whatever you want to say you want to have beans, or even grains, you should also soak your grains. Say you want to have beans and rice tomorrow, so soak them for 24 to 48 hours in water. Drain them off, rinse them, drain them off, and then put fresh water in and cook them. You won't have that digestive issue with them, and you'll get much more out of them, and you won't have this inflammatory response in your intestines. Peanuts generally just all around, I'm sorry, they're just not good. They have a mold on them when they grow. It's poisonous. Peanut butter, please don't eat peanut butter. Just get almond butter. I don't care that it costs $14.
14 is like 28.
Well, whenever you go somewhere else, bring it back with you.
Where do you buy
shopping? Whenever I come back from anywhere, I have food in my bags. I'm always bringing back stuff. So just do that. Pay your duty on it.
So no peanut butter. Even like the
You won't
down-to-earth
cheer
one,
up.
where they
No, even the down-to-earth one. None of them. It's just not a good food. Probably the best way you could eat peanuts if you had to have them would be boiled, because they've soaked for a long. Boiled peanuts you have to cook for a really long time. You know about boiled peanuts? So you got to cook them. You got to soak them. A lot of times, what I'll do is I'll bring my beans to a boil, put a lid on them, turn them off, keep them overnight, rinse off the water. Rinse them again, and then cook them, and they're fine. And they also cook a lot faster.
And
Yes?
how do you sprout?
Sprouts. Love sprouting. Sprouting's a great thing. So easy. It's like one of the easiest things to do. And the cool thing about sprouting is it actually changes what it is you're sprouting. So that lentils end up with more minerals and more protein than they did when they were dried lentils, because of what happens in the breakdown process. And sprouting process. They turn into little green trees. Like that.
So how do you do them? What do you do?
So you soak whatever it is you want in water overnight, usually, or through the day. Okay? You then pour that water off, rinse them. And I usually put a towel over it and I let them germinate for a day in the dark. And then I take the towel off and then I just rinse them twice a day. And then in a few days, especially here, there's sprouts. And then you just rinse them at the end, put a cover on them, stick them in the fridge.
And how long do you then keep once they sprout?
3 days, 4 days. So you can sprout mung beans. Mung beans and lentils mixed together are really good. Love that. Crunchy, they become like little nuts. Really nice flavor, good for you, they're high in protein, high in vitamins. Because it's the new green leaf of a new plant. So there's lots of really good things in there. Okay? Yeah.
Are you using canned beans if you boil it for 15 minutes? Is that savings?
It depends on what they did with them. So I don't know. It depends on how they process them.
Can we go back to the list? Can we go back to the list?
Of beans?
Yeah. So which were the ones you said shouldn't be up there?
What's that?
Did you say some up there shouldn't be up there?
Well, no, I was supposed to fix the spelling of this,
Oh, okay.
which I did not, and then I can't remember what this even was.
So if you boil
Lupins. Oh, no, lupins are there.
If you boil
Carrot.
lentils, they're okay. Carrots.
Soak them, cook them,
Yeah.
and like things like potato too, I just leave those alone. I mean, the only reason soybeans work, they're just so cheap, they've kind of taken over too, but soybeans are only really good for you if you soak them and then you ferment them, which most people aren't going to do with the soybeans because they don't even know how to do that. And that's what Asian cultures do to their soybeans. They turn into a different food. So edamame is a soybean, but it's not fermented. But like tempeh. Heard of tempeh? Tempeh is fermented soybeans. That's good for you. You're gonna have soy tofu, not so good. Okay. These are all good to sprout: alfalfa, clover, all this stuff. Sprout all those. Nightshades. Anybody heard of nightshades before? Nightshades are in the Solanaceae family, and they are poisonous. The fruits and flowers are often poisonous, like belladonna and tobacco is poisonous. And unfortunately, tomatoes, white potatoes, peppers, and eggplants are also in this family, which is unfortunate. And, but highly significant with people with arthritis. So this is something you consider. If you know someone with arthritis, or if you have arthritis, it is definitely worth trying an elimination diet with this. These 4 things. Tomatoes, white potatoes, not sweet potatoes, a whole different plant. Peppers and eggplant.
So if we don't have arthritis, we can.
For now, yes. And you give up sugar and gluten.
I give up sugar.
I do peanut butter too.
And
I've done peanut butter.
that's my favorite thing ever.
I met this guy, Norman Childers, at the University of Florida many years ago, probably 25 years ago. And he was a big researcher there, and he did all of his research through his entire career on this issue of nightshades and arthritis. And it was very interesting. I wish I still had his book, because he's no longer with us. But he lived to a ripe old age of like 103, I think. But he found out. But he probably didn't eat these. But he found, in all of his research, he was just finding people getting significant relief in their arthritis symptoms when they would remove, or complete removal of even the process getting worse. So it was pretty significant. And if I had arthritis, I would definitely look at this. And it's really easy. Just don't have it for 2 weeks, and then have a big spaghetti dinner. Don't use wheat pasta though, because it might be the gluten. Just use the tomatoes, or have white potatoes, and see how you feel the next day. Do you wake up and you're just like, oh, man. It'll be much more obvious than it is when it's just sort of this continuous pain through the day.
And is that all peppers?
All papers.
Peppers.
Peppers. I just got back from your trip. Your accent is much stronger. Sorry. It's okay. Peppers, yes.
Like
Yes.
every type. Does that include like chilies, jalapenos, so anything that is pepper oriented?
I know. All right, so what does this mean for us? We're all screwed, right, Shara?
That's me.
All right, it doesn't mean that really, okay? We could just do some simple things, okay? So we're going to eat fresh, unprocessed foods. So we're going to eat things that have less than like 4 or 5 ingredients. Or better yet, they have no ingredient list on them. They don't come with an ingredient list because they're fresh. They don't have a label like that. Okay? Go to your farmers markets. Go eat the fresh food that's here, because the stuff that comes in the containers have been sitting there for weeks. Please, not only to support our local growers, but because it's better food. And a lot of them really here try to use the least amount of pesticides, and it's pretty good stuff. It's beautiful right now. It's just so great growing season right now. Everything's just like big, lovely, and green. And so eat it. It's good for you. Eat gluten-free foods, not processed gluten-free foods. Processed gluten-free foods are for the interim. It's to get you over the fact that you can't have gluten anymore. You know, they're more expensive, cookies and cakes and breads and all of that, okay? So you save those for special occasions. And just try to eat things that, and if you want to know a good, I'll talk about this in a minute, but this book has a lot of good, a good list in the back about where gluten hides, things that you wouldn't think of, sauces and soy sauce and frozen food. And frozen food is like, why even bother? It's like pretend food. They just like turn it into something, take everything out, and they put in all this artificial stuff and lots of MSG, which has gluten in it, and try to make it taste like something. So don't buy frozen dinners and stuff like that. Cook your own food. Hey, there's an idea. So, you know, restaurants, they try, but, you know, they're going to use the cheap fat, at least in most of their stuff. I mean, they may make a good, nice butter sauce or something, but chances are, unless they're a really nice restaurant, they're not going to use good quality oil. And the kitchens are usually contaminated. It's not that they're trying to make them that way, but they're going to have gluten all over them. So chances are you're going to not feel good when you go out to eat. So just try to do it every now and then. You know, and tell your servers and tell your chef, please help me. You know, I want to eat gluten-free, and can you make something for me? And they always will here. They're really good about it. Use traditional fats. So what are the traditional fats?
Bacon.
Macadamia nut oil. And animal oils, right? Tallows, lards. Limit your sugar. So remove or limit white foods. Okay, but at least try to decrease. So we'll try to make this doable, like get rid of that completely, gluten. Okay, but limit your sugar. Limit your alcohol intake. It's sugar. Okay, so, and if you're going to drink alcohol, don't drink 15 drinks on Friday, because then the rest of the week you won't have anything, right? It's better to drink 1 or 2 drinks every night or every other night than 15 drinks on Friday. It's better for your body. I'm not saying to do that. I'm just saying that if you have that mindset of, well, I only drink on Fridays, but I drink everything in sight, it's really hard. It's really hard on your body.
15 drinks is the limit? Because I can get up to that.
All right, let us know how that goes. And then, of course, hydrate with water. You've heard that from us over and over. 50% of your body weight in ounces each day. And if you exercise, more. And you should be exercising, so. And if you have an alternative condition, stay away from nightshades. So there's some guidelines for you. I mean, not too terrible, right? Don't forget the peanut. And so some of these are just, you know, limited. Consider it. All right, look at it. And, you know, and then see how you're feeling in a month's time. And hopefully you'll be feeling better. Okay. All right, so I do have some resources for you. The Wee Belly book, which everybody knows is my favorite book currently. So written by a cardiologist who's done a lot of research studying about wheat, what's happened to wheat over the last century, how it's genetically different. Wheat farmers will tell you that's not true, so will seed companies like Monsanto. So it depends on who you talk to, but it's a great book. It's really easy to read, it's funny in a weird sort of way. And if you think too scientific, just skip those parts and you get to the part you like. So we have these available always on the island for people to buy if they want, or you can download it, but just read it. Okay? It's by William Davis. My latest favorite book is called Deep Nutrition by Catherine Shanahan and Luke Shanahan, husband and wife. And they just talk about kind of getting back to basics of food and nutrition and a lot of the inflammatory things that I talked about tonight. It's in there as well. It's a nice book. Lots of good info in here. Talked about, tells you how to sprout. And then also a book called It Starts With Food. And this one's by Dallas and Melissa Hartwig. And that's another good one. Basically along the same lines, just to give you, it's like giving you a different perspective. They have some recipes, some pictures, but a lot of the same information about, they talk a lot about sugar in this book.
That was really easy to read.
I like that
Okay. So let's see, anything else? Yeah, and that's another question I get. Well, how long do we have to do this? For a month? For 6 weeks? And so, you know, my answer is really, you got to do it forever. If you want to enjoy your life and feel good. So, and with that, I say that, you know, with balance. I mean, have fun and enjoy your life. have your drinks, have your cookies or peanuts or whatever it is you want. But make it in balance and don't overdo it. Don't be an extreme. Not to be in extremes. Okay, that's it. Any questions? Good stuff. This was extra notes in case we had time. Yeah, it was just, but I will talk about it in the, anybody who's doing the nutrition challenge that starts, we'll meet next Monday night at 7, and I will talk about sprouting and bone broth and fermentation, which are really good things to do. And they talk about them all in these books too, just how to make food better for yourself easily and cheaply. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming. And I'm available for questions if you want to ask anything privately.